Alright, so we've talked about constructive and destructive interference. What I want to do, or destructive, we talked about constructive interference, we haven't talked about destructive. So there's a couple of regions I want to talk about. We've already talked about where these points intersect. And we also talked about where we get regions where there's the low and the low intersecting. We're still getting constructive interference, and we're just making a really deep hole instead of a shallow hole. But the region that we want to talk about now is, geez, I got an itch in my nose. This area right here. Okay? This box right here. These sections where I'm getting a peak lying right in the middle of that wave. Right in the middle of the wave. So I'm getting a peak interacting with the trough in the middle. So if you were to think about it, just drawing it visually, we're having a peak. Having a trough. Okay, so when I add them together, I'm going to get this behavior. That's what my wave, that's what my amplitude at that point is going to look like. Intersections of the peak and trough at that same point is going to give me a flat line. Now, some things you really need to consider though, imagine that this is going to be bigger than that. So this may end up looking something more like that. Okay? So it's the amplitude of this one plus the negative amplitude of that one will give me my final amplitude. Okay? It's the same equation, it's the same idea, but you gotta remember that if we're talking about it going down, you're adding a negative term to that. So you're reducing the total amplitude. Okay? So that's a region of constructive interference. Like you can see these points right here. And if you were to stand at that point, you wouldn't experience any motion at all. You wouldn't be going up at all. It would just be stationary. Okay? Cool? Now, this property of constructive and destructive interference is for all my waves. I mean, it is for sound waves, it is for light waves, it's for mechanical waves. I mean, you can do this in a water tank. If you have a vibrator, a vibrating diaphragm here, and a vibrating diaphragm here that just pulse, like just imagine something striking water with some sort of frequency. It will generate these wave patterns. They're the same frequency. You'll see these points where there's no indentation, and you'll see other points where the indentation is really, really deep. Okay, so that's destructive and constructive. And matter waves almost certainly happens. The next thing I want to talk about is using this idea of destructive and constructive interference. I'm talking about what's known as the double-slitted spin. Cool?